cozy spot. Pour yourself something to drink. Relax. Close your eyes and let's listen to another story. So let's get started. I need to put on my glasses first. Today's story is extremely sad. All stories are sad, but there are some of them that continue to haunt you forever. So it's a very, very dramatic and tragic true crime story, and it's about another Chris we know very well, a Chris Watts, and we know what he did. Well, we have another Chris who did just the same, and I'm going to tell you the story of a beautiful family, a story of a couple who used to have everything they had ever dreamed, and at a certain moment one of them decided that the family was too much and he just erased it from the face of the earth. The name of these two people who used to be a couple are Christopher and Sherry, and they had together two beautiful angels, two perfect boys. You know, there are people who receive everything, people who are rich, who have a dream house, have a dream life, who are healthy, who have wonderful jobs, who have a wonderful family and children, and it's not enough for them to be happy, and they don't find a way out of this like any other normal people do, and they decide to get rid of those who they used to love, or at least they thought they loved. I would never understand how could someone love someone else, make children, get married, build a life and a house, and just wipe everything. Let's get into the story. Christopher Coleman was born in 1977 to two Christian pastors. His parents' names were Aaron and Connie, and he also had other two brothers. All the brothers were raised to learn conservative values and the teaching of the Bible. neighbors, friends and relatives and those who used to know him when he was young describe him as a sensitive boy. So sensitive that he couldn't see animals being hurt in front of him. He really suffered. And when he was in high school, a recruiter from the United States Marine came to his high school and made a huge impact on the young men, teenager back then. He was so impressed that he signed up for the Marine. He entered right out of high school, and he really did well in the Marines. So there, when she was still in the Marines, he met Sherry. Sherry, who was also a member of the US military Marine. Sherry was born in 1977, and she was also a member of the United States Air Force. When Chris went to visit his parents in August 1997, he decided to take Sherry with him. So these two met and fell in love with each other. A very beautiful love story. And they were very much in love. Very, very much in love. Sherry was different from the girls that Chris used to date. So I told you that he had been brought up in a very conservative family, and Sherry was different because she wore short skirts. She had a tattoo, and Chris's parents didn't like her at all, and they would never like her. So they didn't want Chris marry her. They didn't think she was the right person for their son. But they loved each other so much that they eloped together and they got married. And right after that, they were expecting their first baby. Chris and Sherry had their first son April 13th, 1998. His name was Gareth, and they had another son in 2000 named Gavin. They decided to settle in Columbia, Illinois, small town. Small town which was perfect to raise a family in. Quiet neighborhoods, everyone knew everyone, quite a safe place. And both boys loved sports. Sherry decided to stay at home and raise the two boys. And Chris was hired as head of security for a high-profile US TV evangelist. And this job made him earn a lot of money a year, and he had to travel all over the country. He had a wonderful life, as I have told you. Good job. He had been also the son of a minister and had worked his way up the ranks after leaving the Marines. And at home, his stunningly beautiful wife was the perfect housewife and mother. People those who knew her, describe Sherry as being a very loving person. She loved, like any other mother, her children more than anything else in the world. She was very warm and kind, tender-hearted person. So she stayed at home, raising the children, and Chris was working as head of security. And it is said that he made about 65K a year. The children were described as kind, polite, well-mannered and well-behaved. Every night Chris would play with them outside, and then he tucked them into their beds. And before that, they had always prayed together. So, from the outside world, we have again a perfect family, perfect couple, perfect house. And indeed it is, if you know to love and be grateful for what you have. You should be happy to have wonderful family and 2 healthy boys. And still, there were gossips that they weren't too happy in their marriage, although they used to be madly in love with each other. After getting married, they could find out that they were very different. Sherry was kind and loving, and Chris was only a cold person. And he really didn't seem to be quite happy in his marriage. Sherry didn't feel very loved, but still she continued to love him, and she fought for her marriage. And in spite of this, their marriage went on. They had a serene and nice life. Chris enjoyed his job and used to go traveling around the world. I told you that he was head of security for a high-profile US TV evangelist. His family, they were waiting for him to come back home and spend time with them. They even had on the fridge some sort of calendar to mark the days when he would come home and be with them. And out of the blue, Chris started to receive some intimidating emails, some threatening emails, in which Chris is advised to give up working for the evangelist. So he is advised to give up working for that company, and that company had been criticized for its members and for the lifestyle, and the threats kept on coming and coming. When more and more threats came, police started to patrol around Coleman's house, but letters were delivered on their doorsteps instead of this. They were threatened that they had no time at all, that they had to pay. There were threats in there about of killing his family while they were sleeping. And instead of the protection offered, by the police. These letters kept on coming, so they were death threats. At that time, Chris was 34, Sherry was 31, and their sons, Garrett was 11, and Gavin was 9. As I have told you, Chris had a very comfortable life, financially speaking, had a lot of freedom, had a lot of advantages. He and Sherry had been married for 12 years. And those threats seem to be addressed to the person Chris was working for, but nobody else except Chris received the same threats. He was the only one. Police even had a camera installed. The police had even a camera installed in his driveway to watch their home. But still they couldn't find who was the person who kept on sending those threatening messages and letters. One day, early in the morning on May 5th, 2009, while Chris was at the gym, a neighbor received a phone call from Chris. That neighbor was also a detective, a police detective, and he knew very well about the threats. So Chris phoned this police detective to kindly ask him to check on his family because nobody answered his calls. He was trying to call home and nobody answered, so he asked this neighbor to go and see what was going on. This was extremely strange because the gym was not really far away and he could easily go by himself home and see what was going on, but I guess he needed someone else to go in there and find them. So Chris said he couldn't reach his family and that they were usually awake by then. So the detective called some backup and he went to Chris' house to check. He rang at the door, but of course nobody answered. So they had to break a window in order to enter the house. And inside the house there was a nightmare, a horrifying scene. There were red spray paint, writing on the walls, words. That said that you have been punished. I quote, I am watching, and punished, you have paid, end quote. So, inside the house, Sherry, Garrett and Gavin were dead. They, all three of them, they had been strangled in their beds with a cord probably that was never found. Meanwhile, Chris arrived and he was not allowed to enter the house. He tried to cry, but the crocodile tears, it was obvious that he couldn't cry. And the officer told them everything, but he didn't ask how, when, why, who, nothing. He had also a lot of scratches on his arms, and he was desperately trying to cover those scratches, and he became the prime suspect. He was taken in for questioning. He insisted that all the members of his family were alive when he had left the gym. He said that he left the gym about 5:30 in the morning. But they couldn't understand why a person who seemed to be a perfect husband and father decided out of the blue to do such a horrifying thing. When they found out about another woman named Tara, and the affair gave him a motive. It seemed that his good job enabled him to have a double life. Since 2008, he'd been having an affair with a waitress named Tara. And Tara used to be Sherry's best friend in high school. They used to meet when he was away, and she used to go with him, and people around them knew them as being a couple. But he couldn't divorce because this would have meant the loss of his job. He would have been fired. So he needed to determine Sherry divorce him, leave him. So he started to behave extremely rude and cruel, called her names, and Sherry told some of her best friends what she was experiencing, but Sherry loved him so much that she decided to continue to fight for her marriage. She even knew about Tara. She even showed a friend of hers a picture of Tara in their computer, so she knew everything, and still for the sake of her love and her family she decided to go on. Although he was doing his best to make her live. But still, she didn't, and this cost her life and her boys' lives. So Chris couldn't divorce because he would have lost his job, and Tara was pressing him to choose because they were talking about marriage and having a life together. They said that Tara had given Chris an ultimatum, so she wanted him to leave Sherry by the 4th of May because she really wanted to get married, to have a family with Chris. When the deadline arrived, Chris lied and told her that the divorce papers were ready and that she would pass these papers to Sherry the next day. But early on May 5th, Chris left the house to the gym, and later on he found his neighbor, that police detective I was telling you about. Chris was arrested and charged with murder. In April 2011, his trial began, and it was a media circus. It had everything: religion, an affair, mistress, wealthy preacher, everything. So the whole trial was about a millionaire father who had been plotting to erase his own family in order to be free to marry his mistress. So he had started to write threatening mails and letters to himself. Detectives could find the evidence that those emails had been sent from Chris' computer and graphic pathologist analyzed his handwriting and compared his handwriting with the handwriting on the walls in his house. The writing in red paint from the walls. So, tracing back those emails, they could find out that Chris had been planning this for 6 months. The CCTV from the neighbor's home showed that no one else had entered the house after Chris left, and there was no other DNA on the bodies. Moreover, the paint used to write those things on the wall, the paint had been bought by Chris himself, and it was the same color, the same spray paint. And they could decide that Sherry and the boys had been dead for more. So Chris was lying when he said that they were alive when he left his house to go to the gym. Experts testified that Sherry and the boys had died between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. when Chris was at home. They could find in Chris' computer photos. Can you imagine what kind of photos? Messages and tapes of Chris and Tara, and again you can imagine what kind of tapes. And the verdict was handed down 2 years to the day that Sherry, Garrett and Galvin were killed. Chris was found guilty on 3 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to life with no possibility of parole. So on the 4th of May, he took his boys outside and they played together in the yard. They had been seen by the neighbors playing together. Then he prayed before going to sleep, kissed them good night, tucked them into bed. Probably he also kissed his wife goodbye, good night, goodbye. And then he did what he did. do something like this for another woman who spend your time together with your family, knowing what you are going to do, writing threatening letters to yourself for such a long time, being able to look into your children's eyes, into your wife's eyes, knowing that you are going to erase them from the face of the earth. Why? Sherry's only guilt was that she loved him too much. She loved the idea that girl with a tattoo on her leg loved her family more than anything in the world, and wanted to fight for her family and for her love. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Don't forget to drop a like, of course, if you enjoyed this soft-spoken whispering story. Leave a comment. You will help me this way beat the algorithm a little bit, because it's really difficult. And also consider subscribing if you are not subscribed. Thank you very much for listening, and see you on Tuesday for Tuesday's Wine.